Hello, flyers. I've been a line of sight RC flyer for almost 57 years. I'm 68 now, and I've also taught hundreds of folks to fly planes and helicopters pretty successfully. And I know there are many ways to cut a pizza, knife, scissors, and everything, but this one is the one that worked the best for me and my students. So I'm going to show it to you. Back in my early flying days when I was working at Craft Systems and flying in contests, I was usually involved with pattern contests. Today's 3D was actually called pattern back then. Well, the way it worked, each maneuver was called out at the starting point and at the end with the maneuver in the middle. Entry and exit points had to be on the same level for actual maximum points. My fixed-wing flying friends actually never really messed with the rudder. They just used aileron and elevator and had a good old time, punching holes in the sky. But they didn't fly in contests. If you flew in a contest, it became necessary to learn that rudder in order to compete. Also, when I began flying helicopters, I found the tail rotor did the same thing as the rudder, only it worked all the time. But what the rudder stick direction does on an airplane to the nose is the same as what the tail rotor does to the nose. Well, many of you are familiar with my 9 helicopter tips and rules of thumb. That was all written before auto everything showed up on helis today, making them easy to learn. Well, one of my tips is to never watch the tail, because the tail rotor rudder stick actually moves the nose in the same direction as the stick. The tail rotor is reversed, so you got to watch the nose. We also didn't have any gyros, collective pitch heads, or even computers with simulators to practice on back then. In those days, we had to learn. It was all about smooth, too. I fly with guys on the internet that fly wildly and seem out of control all the time. I like to see a person fly recognizable maneuvers and smooth. That impresses me and the judges more. The rudder works equally well both ways on no torque counter-rotating prop airplanes like this Miss Wind. And here's the tip that I learned rudder by and what I teach to my friends. And that is, if you move the rudder stick to the right, it makes the airplane rudder stick move to the right, and it makes the nose on the plane move to the right. If you move the rudder stick to the left, it moves the rudder on the plane left, and the nose goes left. And I tell people that you should practice landing, because if you can't land smoothly, all that rock and roll stuff you're doing in the sky means nothing. Okay, well, as long as you fly oriented in this way, in other words, your brain is in the plane, my rudder or tail rotor direction tip will work. And here's how I do it. When I fly by, I simply always move the rudder stick to the same side of the plane where the wheels are. As you can see, if I roll to the right, my wheels are on the left, so I must move the rudder stick to the left to maintain altitude. Same with the right. To keep yourself level, you don't want to move the rudder too much on an airplane like this. So when I'm flying line of sight, it's really important to keep your transmitter antenna aimed in the same general direction as the plane is flying for that to work. That means if you're flying towards you from the left to the right, you should be looking over your shoulder and the transmitter aimed down the runway. That way, if somebody yells turn left and you do left, it will go left. But if your transmitter is pointed at the plane and somebody yells turn left, it's going to go to the right. Well, you can instantly become reoriented by re-aiming that transmitter and looking over your shoulder. Get it to the general direction the plane is flying and it'll just come to you. Once you get used to this little trick, it'll become natural. So happy flying and thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.